the IBIS discrete Class A equalizer. So it's a 4-band parametric EQ, low, low mid, and the high channels, independent left, right controls. Unlike the Manley, these are not mirrored, so this control is the same as this one, this the same as this, and so on. Each channel has a gain control, frequency and bandwidth like you'd expect on a parametric EQ. The low and the high channels have this switch, which is a shelving feature, so when these are in, it enables, in this case, the low channel to be a shelf, low shelf, similar with the high frequency. On each channel we also have a low frequency cut, or I might say a high pass filter, which go up in 10 Hz steps, and then these color controls, which I think are a really big feature about this EQ, and I'll say more about later. They're just a bit of harmonic enhancement really on each channel. The other thing to know at the minute is this bulb is not working. The power is on, and that would normally illuminate, but there's no real indication that this is actually on without this being lit up, so just make sure the power is on. Then we've got a bypass here, independent left right bypass. There is no way to link the channels, so what you do on one side, if you're working in stereo anyway, you should repeat on the opposite side if you want to keep the stereo balance nice and even. Okay, let's go through one set of controls. So here we go with the high mids. One very unusual feature about this EQ is that the frequency selection, one, it's stepped, so you can't get every single frequency like you'd probably expect in a plug-in or any other hardware EQ really. And the very unusual, specific to this EQ, I think, I've not seen it on another EQ, is that these are labelled in frequencies. Some have got numbers, so this goes down to 466, but also musical notation as well. So this one, the bottom frequency is A sharp at 466 Hz, and all the way up at the top it's 5.9K, and that's F sharp. So that's a good way of dialing in, you know, the key of the song, you know the notes, you're after a particular note rather than a frequency, you can find it fairly quickly. The red button here is a step button. Potentially confusing, I think. You might have this button in here and not there. It's not always easy to spot that these buttons are in, particularly if you're looking from above. So just make sure before you do the final render that you've got everything as expected. And that button specifically, when this is on D and then I press this button, it jumps up a tone to E. Okay, so it's jumping 2 half steps. So that is not D, it's now E because this button's in. So just be cautious about that. If you check out the IBIS manual, there is a chart that shows you all the frequencies that you can get on this EQ, and you can't get every single possible frequency that you might want, but these do overlap. So the top end of this overlaps with the bottom end of that, and I've never really had a problem getting close to the frequency I want at least. There shouldn't be any issues. So these are stepped, which is good for recall and matching left and right, and it's kind of like the Manley's got these stepped controls. But the gain control and the bandwidth, these are potentiometers. So this channel might be on 2 dB and that channel might be on 2 dB, or it might be slightly out. So you don't get that precise setting left and right. And if you're working in stereo, you generally want that to be the case. So just be careful that these look as close as possible. Similar with the bandwidth. The bandwidth itself then, anti-clockwise is very narrow band of frequencies. Clockwise is a more gentle curve, Q curve. Let's just demonstrate that with some audio. So I'll put this all the way up, boost, bring the bandwidth down, frequency range down, make sure it's in. So that's bypass, that is in, and I'll just sweep. Hopefully that comes out on the video. Kind of like that whistling, typical whistling sound when you're working in a very narrow frequency range. If I open this up, it's a lot more natural sounding. So it depends what you're after. I would normally say you can cut very narrow frequency ranges, but when you boost in, to make it more natural, it's generally better to be a little bit wider. Okay, yeah, the low cut, fairly straightforward if you want a high pass filter, all the way up to 150 Hertz. So the other, big thing is the color settings here. This is a color unlike any other of the color kind of sounds you can get from the kit in this studio, so it doesn't sound like the Manley or the Head and the Avalon, which I'll say more about later. But it is a very nice sounding colour, and when this switches all the way anti-clockwise, it's off, and then you can go through each band, so you can add colour independently to each EQ band, so you won't get anything unless there is some EQ actually happening on that channel. And if you go full, you get colour across the whole EQ, and then there's an amount setting here, so how much colour you actually want. So let's see if we can hear any of this. Band 3. Then across the whole EQ. Yeah, very nice musical, fattening kind of quality about it. So that's the IBIS.